we played a clip from Barnaby Rain last week, and it was immensely important context into what we're seeing in Gaza right now. And this is another clip of his 2 days after the Hamas attack on October 7th, speaking about what he calls a moral panic about anti-Semitism. Now, he goes on to say, and I agree, that there are very real problems of anti-Semitism, very, very real ones. But at least domestically in the US, the biggest anti-Semites are also the ones that are cheering on what Israel is doing right now. And I think that what Barnaby does here is explain and kind of put those two pieces together about why that is the case.
Because we are seeing a rise in hate because of this. And we're seeing, synagogues attacked. We're seeing, I just saw a video of a Muslim woman getting a paving stone thrown at her by some fucking asshole. So like this sort of thing is being translated into a bigotry. And I think Barnaby Rain puts it into really great context there.
We've had in Britain in the last few years a massive, I think, a moral panic about anti-Semitism. It's genuinely true that we live in a moment, a perfect kind of storm for revived anti-Semitism. But it also doesn't work to argue with the guy who opened the door when I was canvassing in 2019, full of Union Jack tattoos, not the kind of guy I was taught to believe would be a friend of the Jews. A hardline right-wing nationalist who told me that he wasn't voting Labour because Jeremy Corbyn likes immigrants and also he's an anti-Semite. It wouldn't be useful to talk to him about anti-Semitism in a way that I would understand, because what he'd done when he talked about anti-Semitism is redefined what Jews were. Jews had come to him to be in an era of the State of Israel, imperialist state in the era. Jews had come to him to be not the Semitic outsiders that they were in the anti-Semitic imaginary of most of the 20th century, but a symbol of whiteness, hated by basically the wretched of the earth, hated by black and brown people with Palestinians in the lead and Arabs behind them and all the anti-imperialist, anti-colonial nations of the world behind them. Jews are also a symbol of wealth. We had a Labour MP telling us, Siobhan Madonna, I think it was, telling us that to be anti-capitalist was necessarily anti-Semitic, because Jews are a symbol of wealth. So what you see there is both conditions for a real rise in anti-Semitism and a moral panic, which claims to be about the anti-Semitism, which is really rising, synagogues are really under attack, Jews really being threatened, but in fact is about constructing Jews in such a way that you can imagine, in this case, the anti-Semites as these folk devils who are the black and brown people threatening your Western hegemony and workers and the poor threatening capitalist power. So Tony Blair said, behind all populism, one of the words I wish I could ban, behind all populism, Tony Blair said, lies the shadow of anti-Semitism. Macron in France said the Gilets jaunes movement against fuel price rises were anti-Semitic. So I think that's important, right? Moral panics aren't just lies. They're not just inventions. They respond to real social crises. And so the way to answer them isn't to just call people silly, but is to give people different and better ways of talking about the real issues that they're worried about.
I mean,
he is
he's
absolutely on a burner right now.
Yeah. I mean, and that is exactly that. Why do the most right-wing politicians in the West support Israel unequivocally? Is it because they're so committed to anti-Semitism as they print out flyers of George Soros being a puppeteer? Or is it exactly what is said right there? Do they view the value of Israel as a colonial outpost in a sense for the United States and for the UK, but more importantly, as a state that's heavily militarized, that's violence is justified against the savages, and one that they can ascribe morality to in the abstract sense? Fighting anti-Semitism, hearkening back to mythology about U.S. kind of heroism in World War II. I mean, there were heroic acts in World War II, but, it's often those same actors will completely brush aside, say, the Soviets losing 20 million people in the fight against the Nazis. They launder that history to justify brutality now. And they get a thrill out of it. I mean, we were in a real period of complete exhaustion and anger towards the end of the second Bush term, about the war on terror and wars in the Middle East, but that thirst for a justified, in their eyes, attack on and mass killing of Muslim savages, brown savages, that never went away. That never went away. Yeah, they moved on. They moved on to transphobia. Yeah, when Obama got elected, there was a lot of Islamophobia there, but in many ways, their anti-blackness came to the fore, and they focused on things like austerity. And then Trump came into office on a Muslim ban, and people covered it, but it was never really the thrust of the coverage for a while. Or at least when it was just about Trump and not about the sickness in this country. Israel is a continuation, the West's perception of Israel's role from a right-wing perspective is a continuation of that same sickness that we still can't get rid of, which is this institutional hatred of Muslim people, hatred of brown people, hatred of Arabs. And even good liberals, they don't even confront their opinions about it. And it makes people easily propagandized. And so it allows for this weaponization of anti-Semitism, which increases anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It increases it. Because when you continue to buy into the Zionist framing...
We represent Jews, and also we're going to do this apartheid and ethnic cleansing. Tying Jews as a group... Despicable. ...to what Israel is doing right now is so short-sighted by a genocidal Israeli government that doesn't really care about the Jewish people. I mean, Netanyahu has spread a conspiracy theory that the Palestinian Grand Mullah was really the one that planted the idea of extermination of Jews in Hitler's head, a completely made-up conspiracy theory. I mean, look at the stuff that Michael cited with Bibi's kid being an alt-right edgelord. These are fascist-friendly people.
Do not buy into the framing that this government is trying to protect Jewish people because of the institutional trauma suffered from centuries of discrimination and from, obviously, the extermination efforts in the Holocaust, which are unspeakable. That is honestly, an emotional manipulation. And it's fraught and it's difficult. I understand. But you have to have the moral courage to say, I will not buy into this. And one atrocity will never justify the next. It never will. So,
but yeah, cheers, Barnaby Rain, who we should probably just have on, because that is the most succinct summarization of the sort of puzzle with regards to how a state constructed for for Jews after the Holocaust becomes a symbol for white supremacy, and that's just facts. That's what it is. That's why you have all these Republicans bending over backwards. It's not because they really remember the Holocaust and care.